This is the Montana Outdoor Podcast, brought to you in part by Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer in Missoula, home of Boss Snowplows, CM Truck Beds, and Diamond Sea Trailers. Just go to rmtte.com for more information. And by Superior Hardwoods of Montana, home of the largest selection of in-stock high-end wood products and flooring in the western United States. Let them guide you through the woods at superior-hardwoods.com. Now, get ready for more fascinating topics and the most interesting people you will ever find in Montana's great outdoors. We offer new podcasts most every Saturday. You can get a link to these podcasts by going to our website, montanooutdoor.com, or by going to our Facebook page, or just send an email to Downrigger at montanooutdoor.com and say send a link to my email. It's that simple. Now let's head out with your host, Downrigger Dale, and see what's going on in Montana's great outdoors.
Thanks so much, Manny. And as Manny just said, I am Downrigger Dale with the Montana Outdoor Podcast. So good to have all of you along. Thanks again for joining us here. Now, for all you hunters, this is going to be a great podcast. You may have heard the last one. If you didn't, definitely check that out. That was in Region 5. I had a chance to talk with Matt Ladd, and he gave us a great interview all about the hunting in Region 5, what the hunting opportunities are, everything from deer, elk, birds, you name it. And that's what we're going to be doing throughout most of our podcasts here in the next few weeks. We may break every now and then if there's something that comes up, but for the most part, I'm going to try to cover every single hunting region in the state of Montana so that all of you have some ideas of, one, what hunting's going to be like where you're going to be hunting, and two, in listening to all these different regions, it might give you an idea of where you might want to try. Maybe try someplace new. Maybe you hear something, you go, hey, that sounds a little better than where I normally hunt. The whole idea is there's some great resources out here in this great state we live in. And for those of you that are going to be hunting from out of state, that you are going to come visit. So in planning that, and we'll also try to go over some tools for you of different ways you can use. The FWP has some wonderful hunt planner tools on their website. I'm going to put a link to those. So number one, when you look at the podcast description. That was a description of the podcast when you joined it, whether you came to us through Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Amazon, YouTube, you name it. We're on 26 different places. So no matter where you came from, there's always that podcast description. If you go a little below, just kind of follow it down, you're going to see in bold print, it's going to say links. And on those links, I'm going to have a link to Region 6. That's who we're going to be talking about today. And it's going to give you just kind of a brief overview of the hunting forecast, game forecasts, all that for Region 6. You can pull that up now, follow along with us, or look at it later, go back to it whenever you like. And then you'll also find lots of other links. It should be great links to be able to get you where you want to go and help you plan your hunt and all that. Before I get to my guest, I also want to thank all of you, the active military listening from all around the world. We really are honored that when you get a chance to take a break from protecting our country and the rest of the world, that you spend some time with us. It is a true honor to have you along, and thank you for your service. Now, today I want to talk with Scott Thompson. He is the Wildlife Manager at Region 6, and that is based out of Glasgow, Montana. At Region 6 it's a real interesting region. I think you're going to really enjoy this because you're going to hear there's a lot of diversity in that region, and I have heard just wonderful things about the bird hunting so far in that region this year too. So, Scott, thank you so much for joining me again. Good to have you back on the Montana Outdoor Podcast.
Thank you, Dale. Yep, I think last time we visited about antelope, so this is timely.
Yeah, it is. It's that time of the year. Of course, the archery is already underway. We do have some upland game bird going, but as time goes along, more and more of these regions are going to be popping up with more hunting opportunities. So I want to go through all those. But before we get into that, Scott, let's have you talk a bit about yourself, where you're from, when you got involved with the FWP and all that good stuff.
Okay. Yeah, Dale, I grew up on the west side of the state in Butte, America.
Oh, okay.
Born and raised there, and grew up in a hunting and outdoor family, which led me to a career with Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. So after a short stop at MSU and a master's degree, and I landed in eastern Montana. Actually started in Culbertson, some of the best bird hunting in the world centered around that area, and have spent 21 years on the High Line as an area biologist, wildlife biologist, and now as a wildlife manager for I guess it's going on 7 or 8 years now. So.
Oh, okay. So you've been wildlife manager that long too. Okay.
Yep.
So I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
So what made you choose that career, Scott? What got you into that?
Well, like I say, my upbringing, I was fortunate to have family that loved to hunt and fish and spend time outdoors. And I didn't know I could make a career out of working with wildlife, with landowners, with habitat. But through my graduate work, I worked all over the state with Fish, Wildlife, and Parks biologists, and was just so impressed with the knowledge they had of their area, the passion they had for what they did. And after visiting with those folks through my graduate work, I knew that's what I wanted to do. So, and here I am, 21 years later. So
I'm glad that you brought that up as far as the passion side of it, because everybody I talk to, and for those of you listening, I know you've heard it, the passion in their voice, whether I've been talking to fisheries biologists or whatever with the FWP. I think we often forget you guys got into this business, most all of you, because you love getting out and hunting and fishing. So they're probably some of the most avid hunters and fishermen that you're ever going to meet. So that's important, I think. So let's talk a bit about Region 6. First, could you kind of, if possible, just describe Region 6 for me as far as where that's located, kind of how it's laid out?
Yeah, you bet. Geographically, we are the northeastmost region in Montana. If you know where the Sweetgrass Hills are, near on our northern border with Canada, you go from the Sweetgrass Hills to North Dakota, and from Canada down to essentially the Missouri River breaks.
Mm-hmm.
So we're a long region. From east to west, I think it takes about 5 or 6 hours to cross the region.
Wow.
If you went from our westernmost edge of our region and went west, you'd actually land in Washington, to give you a sense of how wide and diverse this region is. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So you guys cover a lot.
Yeah.
Yep. And as far as the topography and that, I mean, over in eastern Montana, things tend to be not near as mountainous as where you're originally from, and where I'm originally from. I'm originally from western Montana as well, and that. But there's some great country there. In fact, those of you that listen to this podcast a lot, we talk about Fort Peck Reservoir a lot, especially recently talking about all the great salmon fishing they've been having with the king salmon. That's also in Region 6. So that'll give you guys all a pretty good idea of what's there. Now, as far as hunting goes, maybe you can give us an idea of how much of the region consists of public lands, how much consists of private lands, which that might be a little tough to come out, but maybe a rough percentage or whatever way you can describe it as far as public and private go.
Yeah, you bet, Dale. So being a prairie environment, much of our region is privately owned, either in farming or ranching operations. I pulled up a few figures. About 70% of Region 6 is private land, and about 30% is, or the remaining 30 is public land. And so, our public lands primarily are BLM managed, but there are several wildlife National Wildlife Refuges. CMR is in part of Region 6 in the breaks. We have several smaller refuges that are waterfowl centric. And then, of course, we have the scattering of DNRC or state land parcels across. So.
Okay. As far as the hunting opportunities go in Region 6, what would you say your region is most noted for? Is it more on the big game side? Is it more on the bird, or is it pretty fairly balanced as far as what most hunters show up at Region 6 for?
Yeah, so we do see a lot of upland game bird hunters, folks that will focus on both grouse and pheasants as their primary game bird. We also see and kind of a rising interest in mule deer hunting up here, and so that is definitely second to bird hunting. But we've seen a lot of folks that travel here just for mule deer now. So.
Oh, okay. Okay, so how about looking at hunting opportunities as far as in this series we're going to try to cover as much as we can on all the different you know reports, especially in this particular podcast for Region 6, talking about some of the game forecasts and all that. So let's maybe talk about, I guess, the one that kind of from the press standpoint steals the show a lot across Montana, and that's bull elk, and maybe elk in general, I'd say. Give us an idea of what you think the elk hunting is looking like for this season here in Region 6.
Yeah, so we do have a few elk that primarily reside in the Missouri River breaks and in Bears Paw Mountains, south of Havre. I'll kind of preface this with Region 6 is a very small player in Montana's elk hunting opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
In Montana, I pulled up a few stats. We harvest annually around 25 to 30,000 elk a year in Montana. In Region 6, we harvest less than 1,000 a year. So,
okay.
But that being said, the Missouri River breaks does draw a lot of elk hunting interests, primarily archery hunting. Our elk numbers in the breaks are down from average, and we for a lot of years, if anyone's tuned into elk management, we've tried to manage elk to objective, and our current state is actually below objective, interestingly enough. So elk numbers are down a bit, and I think it's fair to say, especially in the breaks, we're in a growth phase. We're trying to grow that herd a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Bears Paw Mountains, that would be District 690, is faring better. Elk numbers are within the new elk objective and hovering near average, so a little bit better conditions there.
Mm-hmm. As far as the, when we hear Missouri River breaks and elk, there has been some fantastic bulls that have come out of that area. I know a lot of the outfitters in that area really have done well in attracting folks that really are looking for that big bull. But overall, I think it's a unique area in that you're going to find a different kind of terrain for elk hunting as opposed to some of these big, backcountry areas or big, mountainous areas. Talk a little bit about what the average elk hunter is going to find in some of those top elk areas, hunting districts there, as far as terrain goes.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. We talked to a lot of hunters that they've hunted the mountains in either Montana or other states. So, what's the breaks like? And I would suggest the breaks are a bit more challenging. It's certainly we don't have the high elevation, but the undulating terrain, the nature of coulee after draw, up and down and up and down, and frankly, some of it just all seems the same. What's with a rhyme or reason why elk are here or there? Whereas in the mountains, you might be able to focus on open parks or water sources or different security terrain. But similar to the mountains, public access and roads are the primary driver in where elk are. Elk know where roads are, and we always recommend you get a mile from the road, and your chances of finding elk go way up. So
Okay. Yeah, they're not stupid. They know that.
yeah.
Okay, that's my predator is humans, and that's where they hang out. So, yeah. In as far as those districts, is there any one district that you think kind of stands out as this is probably where you're going to find the majority of the elk in Region 6 this year?
Well, 690 in the Bear's Paw, like I said, is hovering, near average or slightly above, and the numbers of elk there just are stronger right now. And it is, in fact, the only area that we offer general license hunting opportunity for cows only. All bull hunting in Region 6 in those areas is by permit only. So it's those hunters with the permit can pursue those. In the breaks districts like 622 and 621, both of those areas are just plain down. And like I said, part of that is we put a lot of pressure on the herd with cow harvest, trying to get down to objective. But old Mother Nature came in with drought, and just that's the trump card for us. Is drought took calf production from an average of about 50 calves per 100 cows that we would typically see on surveys, and we were during the drought period seeing 20 or so calves per 100 cows. So our production was down, and so we've just really backed off on that antlerless cow harvest, and we're in a little bit of a rebuild phase, or at least increase those numbers back to objective levels.
Well, it's worth taking a peek at, especially, and I'm glad you brought the cow hunting up, because for those of us that just love to eat elk and want to put some meat in the freezer, that is a great opportunity for you. So might want to consider that when you're looking at it. As far as any regulation changes to Region 6 for elk, is there anything that our listeners should be aware of that have been a recent change they better watch out for?
Because so much of our elk hunting is by special permit or special license, most hunters would have encountered those changes already. But a primary one is we no longer have a late shoulder season in the breaks. We don't need that tool when elk numbers are that low. But that was by drawing only. So just that opportunity has gone away. But outside of that, we're just adjusting quotas and license levels that already the hunters have drawn for. So,
and of course, we always encourage everybody, look over your regulations, whether you're going into Region 6 or anywhere. Give them a good once over before you head in, just in case something has changed. Let's shift gears a little and talk about mule deer in Region 6. What is the forecast looking for muleys in Region 6?
Yeah, no, good question. I think mule deer has been on a lot of people's mind across the state, and Region 6 is right there. And I'm gonna just describe kind of the roller coaster that we've seen with mule deer over the past 10 years, just real briefly. But the short story is, after 2010, we had a really hard winter, numbers were down, and then it rained for about 5 or 6 years. And mule deer numbers went through the roof. They responded to those great conditions. And in about 2020, 2021, our mule deer population was almost double average. We were producing mule deer like crazy. great fawn production. And then again, just like the elk, old Mother Nature decided to shut the tap off.
Mm-hmm.
Things dried out, and our fawn ratios dropped down to very low levels. And so now we've come off that high that was almost twice the average. Hunters got used to seeing a lot of deer out there.
Mm-hmm.
We were recruiting a lot of fawns, a lot of bucks on the landscape, great buck ratios. And then when you take that fawn production and drop it down to a third of what it was, numbers have dropped. And currently we're somewhere around 20% below average. So certainly a level that we've seen before, but nowhere near what we saw about 3-4 years ago. And so the one bright side I would say is, like I mentioned, we've seen some really low fawn ratios for the past 3 years or so. This year, the biologists through their surveys have finally picked up back to normal good fawn ratios.
Oh, great.
We had a nice mild winter. Last year, we had good moisture conditions, so that all feeds right into it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a good reminder that wildlife management and using hunters to manage wildlife, we're reacting to Mother Nature. We're not driving populations, but we're reacting to what she's doing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
And, let's face it, hunters are a great tool for managing wildlife.
Yep.
As far as the muleys go, is there any hunting districts that you would recommend that are going to be pretty hot this year?
Oh, that's a dangerous question. So what we've seen as a current pattern is the further east you go in the region, numbers are better. Mule deer numbers are better because it rained more.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of escaped much of the drought conditions, and we had better fawn production. So east is better, and typically north is better in our region. So the corollary to that is kind of our breaks areas that are in the southern part, central part of the region are very low right now. So those areas actually we do not allow any doe harvest in those areas. That'd be district 621 and 622.
Okay. Okay. As far as regulations go, anything drastically changed at all that folks might want to be sure and familiarize themselves for as far as mule deer go?
Yeah, great question. Our Fish and Wildlife Commission has reacted to mule deer conditions across eastern Montana, and there will be no doe harvest on public lands this year.
Okay.
So that's both folks that hold a B license or a doe license that can only be used on private lands this year, as well as most of our districts allow for antlerless or doe harvest on your general license. So again, that would need to be on private land.
Okay.
Yep, and we've also reduced numbers of doe licenses to correspond with the population decrease. So the biologists actually decreased them by over half this year. So we're not putting as many doe tags out on the landscape as we would have in the past.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other question I had was as far as muleys go, and really CWD can affect a lot of different wildlife, but it always seems to be, as far as the emails I get and questions I get, seems to be a lot associated with mule deer. How is that for Region 6? Is that fairly light in your region as compared to the rest of the state as far as CWD instances, or where do you think that fits in there?
Yeah, CWD is very prevalent in our mule deer populations north of Highway 2.
Okay.
We have, through hunters bringing in their game, being able to test those animals, we've got a great sense of what prevalence is. So prevalence is the percentage of critters that
Sure.
have the disease. And in mule deer, in those districts north of Highway 2, we've watched it since 2018 climb upwards of 10 to 15% north of Highway 2. And so that's pretty concerning for us.
Sure.
Our statewide, our goal is to keep it under 5%. And so, we're above that in those districts. And so it is a challenge for us as we watch mule deer numbers decrease. We can't let our guard down on CWD either. And so it is quite a balancing act trying to manage the disease, but also manage populations to give a good hunting opportunity out there. So,
yeah, and in a bit we'll talk about the check stations and that and what you're looking for and that too in a little bit. We're going to take a quick break here, Scott. When we come back, let's shift gears again and get into whitetail. So we'll cover that plus a whole lot more. So don't go away, anybody, and we'll do that right after this. Hey, gang, thanks for supporting and listening to this podcast. I can't tell you how much it means to all of us that you're here. And speaking of support, we would not be able to do this podcast at all if it weren't for sponsors like Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer. It is truly an honor to have Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer on our team. If you own a trailer, you ought to think about adding them to your team too. They can service your trailer, and when it comes to repairing trailers, well, you won't find anyone better at it than Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer. If it's parts you need to do your own service and repairs, well, they are the place for that. Another thing you may not know about Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer is they install all kinds of accessories for the truck that pulls your trailer. Whether it's just the necessary items to help your truck get the trailer down the road perfectly, or all those gadgets and bells and whistles to dress your truck up a bit and, well, make it your unique style. And here's the best part. The folks that do all those repairs and installations are real technicians. They do things the right way and do it to such a degree of precision and reliability that you can roll down the road with confidence. Whether you need your trailer bearings packed, the whole thing rewired, or the right fifth wheel, or any kind of hitch installed, you're going to know that your trailer is ready to haul what you want worry-free. No matter if it's getting you and your four-legged coworker to the next rodeo or job, or just hauling a load to the dump, or getting the boat and RV to your favorite fishing hole, Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer has you covered. And of course, if you need a new trailer, they can set you up with a brand new Diamond C gooseneck equipment, dump trailer, or whatever else you need to haul wherever you are going worry-free, happy, and looking good, too. Heck, they even carry an amazing line of CM truck beds that'll make your rig look and work like new. It's what they do at Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer. They're in Missoula, or you can find them on the web at rmtte.com. That's rmtte.com. Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer. Go see them. We are back here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast. My guest is Scott Thompson. He is a wildlife manager for Region 6. Going over all that region, we've covered elk and muleys. Now let's get into the whitetail, Scott. How are whitetail looking for Region 6 this year?
Whitetail numbers, we've seen actually a longer-term decline in whitetail numbers in our region. Currently, the biologists through their surveys indicate we're about 40% below average on our whitetail population. It is interesting. Wildlife are a very prolific animal. Under the right conditions, their numbers can explode. But a couple things are driving whitetail in our region. We periodically have EHD, which is most hunters call it blue tongue. It's epizootic hemorrhagic disease. We'll see that move through whitetail populations in our region. Most currently, I think it was 2 years ago, we saw it come in on the east side. and it dropped those numbers down 75% or so in those areas, from Culbertson all the way up to Glasgow. Really dropped down. And then the other big driver that we see is CRP. In years, past years, when we had an immense amount of CRP on the landscape, which is Conservation Reserve Program, highly productive, mixed grass seeded areas on farmland, those whitetail just explode in those areas, and we've seen a big drop in CRP in our region. So a couple drivers definitely have resulted in lower than average whitetail numbers. So,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
But overall, of course, and don't get us wrong, folks, when we discuss some of these negative sides like CWD or any of that. I mean, still, Montana's in Region 6 is good opportunities, but it is important to know what's going on. Any districts, as far as whitetail go, that might be a little better than others?
Just due to their nature of, they're a lot of river bottom whitetails. So we both have the Milk and Missouri river bottoms. And so within those river bottom areas, they're most susceptible to EHD. Like I said, the east end of our region would be down further and so a gradient as you go west, it improves on the river bottoms. But there are some areas, primarily as you go north of Highway 2 and you kind of get in these farmed agricultural areas, there's some really good pockets of whitetail hunting. Those areas from Plentywood all the way over to Opine can hold some really good numbers of whitetails, and then again north of Malta, there's some areas that they're pretty productive for whitetails. So just don't get too frustrated and hung up on the river bottom whitetail scenario. There are some great prairie opportunities out there, and those can be some pretty rewarding hunts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're out there for sure. I mean, when I'm out fishing, I'm near Fort Peck. They're all over the place. So,
yeah.
Of course, that always happens until the season goes, and then those critters, their little alarm bell goes off, and all of a sudden you don't see them, and you almost run them over every 5 minutes, and then it's nothing. But
especially this time of year where everything's kind of dry everywhere, but the ditches are green on the highways, and it seems like every deer in the surrounding 3 miles is right there on the highways.
And any special regs or changes that we better watch out for whitetail?
No, nothing too alarming. We did drop the number of licenses. A person can hold 3 doe licenses now. It used to be higher, but beyond that, the hunter should expect the same opportunities.
Okay, great. Yeah. Well, let's move on to the pronghorn side of things in Region 6. What is your pronghorn populations looking like this year compared to, say, the last few years?
It's kind of average. I know that's it's hard to relate to for hunters, but we again, I don't know when I'm going to quit talking about the winter of 2010-11, but that was the winter that dropped our antelope down to just bare minimum, and antelope have rebounded back to kind of average levels and just kind of hovered there. Buck ratios were okay. Usually we see 30 to 40 bucks per 100 does, which is good. And fawn numbers similarly were just about average. So it's just kind of an average year for antelope.
Yeah. Average year though. Am I correct though? When you look at your average year, maybe compared to other regions in the state, would you guys be still quite a bit higher than other regions or no?
Yeah, of course, our eastern regions 4 through 7 are your primary opportunities for antelope. And Region 7 for so many years has had just a super productive high population, and they've seen their decreases as well. I think if we probably compared regions 4 and 6 and 5, we're probably all about similar,
Okay.
but behind region 7 as far as population sizes. So,
All right. How about we move on now to let's talk about a little bird hunting. Now, that's one thing that I have heard. When we do our live show every Saturday morning, we talk about, of course, fishing and that, but we also, especially this time of year, shift gears into hunting, and we just keep hearing really good things about bird hunting in Region 6 this year. Have you been hearing the same thing as far as hunter success?
Yeah, early reports on grouse. Of course, grouse and huns is what is open right now.
Right. Hmm.
Uh, Pretty decent reports for generally across the region. Um, the further northeast, kind of that Plentywood, Scobie country, it's actually dropped down a bit. Last year was very high for both populations and harvest up there, but early indications are it's probably come down a little bit closer to average,
Hmm.
whereas the whole western part of the region has come up again because it rained.
Yeah.
And so the whole, the rest of the region kind of caught back up finally. And so I think that's resulting in what you've heard is, yeah, across the region, things are a little bit better. But again, hunters might not find quite as many in that eastern or northeastern part where it was extremely good last couple of years.
Hmm. Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and so grouse are looking good. The huns are looking good. What do you think the pheasant opportunities in that are going to be? Do you think that's going to be pretty good for you guys this year?
Yeah, it does look pretty good. So the biologists do a spring crow counts, and that's just an early indication of overwinter survival. How we doing? And those look pretty good. Um, and then they also run some brood counts, and that's the real indicator, as you know, for pheasants is we need the annual production, and the production looks pretty darn good across the region. That Havre country is probably remains lower than the rest, but it's improved. But the rest of the region looks pretty darn good this year, and one good indication is when you get a lot of frustrated grouse hunters that keep running into pheasants
Yeah.
when they're out grouse hunting,
Yeah.
and I'm hearing a fair bit about that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, that's a good sign then. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
as far as waterfowl goes, are you anything there that is worth bragging about or talking about in your area so far? Of course, we're not to that point yet, but we will be.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, part of the opportunity is local birds that are produced right here in our prairie potholes in our region, but the majority of our opportunity is migrants that are coming from further north. The Fish and Wildlife Service produces some estimates, and we help with surveying those critters. And it looks like ducks are down. Production is down a little bit this year. But most notably, our wetland conditions were a little bit drier this year as compared to last year.
Mhm.
Last year, we had quite a bit longer winter and more moisture that resulted in good wetland conditions. This year is just a hair drier. So I would expect that waterfowl hunters might not see quite as good numbers as they saw last year in summary. So,
Okay. All right.
yep.
Well, something to consider and look at. And as I always say, folks, the best thing you can do is, even if Region 6 is your region, that's where you love to hunt all the time. Still, having a good plan together is real important. And we're going to spend a little time on hunter access here in a sec. So we'll give you some suggestions there, but that's where you really got to plan. Last minute beating on farmers' doors is just not a good plan. That isn't a plan. So
Yeah,
you
for
know,
sure.
make sure you really plan this stuff out, and now's the time to get that done. Now let's talk about your check stations in Region 6. Where are the check stations at? And are there any particular things that you're really looking for from hunters? Of course, they have to stop at check stations whether you have game or not. But is there any kind of information in particular you'd like to gather from hunters?
Yeah, so we operate one biological check station in the region, and that's just east of Havre.
Okay.
And we've operated that for years. And that's kind of it gives us a great sample across all of our districts of both game and hunters, what they're encountering in the field. So, yeah, we thank the hunters for stopping by. I always enjoy visiting with them there in Havre. Beyond that, we do operate several CWD. I don't think we call them check station, but sampling stations where hunters can swing in and have their deer or elk sampled for CWD. And those opportunities we'll have in Havre at the check station and at our office. And then on the weekends in Malta. And then a new one for us is in Circle this year.
Oh, okay.
And we just want to get a few more samples from that area. As far as what anything we're looking for, particularly in the game that people bag or their experiences, disease is always kind of on our mind. We're trying to sample for that, but CWD is probably the most interest there. So we appreciate those that are willing to take a few more minutes to allow us to sample their animal. But beyond that, it's a great opportunity to get a sense of our hunters seeing what we're seeing in our surveys. Are we off base? It's a good opportunity to see what's going on out there across the whole region. So we really appreciate people stopping by and visiting with us. So.
Mm-hmm. Now let's talk a bit about hunter access.
Okay.
How is that looking for Region 6? As you mentioned early in the program here, a great deal of Region 6 is private land. How is that going as far as landowner participation for Region 6?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you asked that. Block management, as many hunters are familiar with, I think it is one of our proudest programs that we operate in the region. And we just have a great crew that runs that program. So in Region 6, we got about 13 million acres of private land. And so we have about 10% of that enrolled into block management. And so we think that's a great win.
Yeah,
that's
a
about
lot of land.
That's about 1.3 million acres that private landowners have enrolled. So we really appreciate their involvement. And many of these folks have been in the program for decades. And so I think that's just the success of the program and the folks that are running that and the landowners. I really appreciate that. But then we have a scattering of other programs. Our Upland Game Bird program enrolls some more access, about another 150,000 acres. That's bird hunting opportunity. And some of those, it's just walk-in bird hunting called open fields. And then there's a scattering of other programs that make up probably another 50,000 plus that are access and road access opportunities. So yeah, in summary, access is still pretty good. And that's not to say just being considerate, knocking on doors and asking permission is still a viable option in the region. So
Sure.
Thanks to our landowners. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going to take just another quick break, and then I want to just continue a little bit longer on this hunter access stuff, and especially just kind of give some tips for how folks ought to seek that permission, because I agree with you. Beyond just block management, there are opportunities that exist, but how you approach them is important. So we'll talk about that right after this. Hey, I want to tell you a bit about one of the great businesses that is responsible for making this podcast possible. I'm talking about my friends at Superior Hardwoods of Montana. They're a well-established Montana company with origins starting way back to 1977. They've been proudly serving the Missoula community and, well, far beyond that since then. Yeah, so no matter where you're listening, they can help you. Now, again, if you have been listening to this podcast for a while, you know that some of the things Superior Hardwoods is most known for are their extraordinary flooring lines. In fact, a majority of those are manufactured right there in their lumber yard in Missoula. And speaking of flooring, they just introduced the Timeless Pre-Finish series. Now, this is a series designed to simplify the overwhelming task of remodeling and replacing the old worn-out flooring in your home. This new series allows you to effortlessly transform any room pretty much instantly. This flooring is made in America and comes in pre-finished maple, hickory, white oak, red oak, ash, and reclaimed oak. It's just beautiful. It has a superior quality sealer and matte finish to it. Now, this totals 6 coats of durable protection on the floor. But along with all their different flooring lines and their acres of reclaimed beams and lumber, they also offer fantastic products to complete your remodel. Thousands of feet of alder molding and hundreds of square feet of stunning antique paneling. Just beautiful stuff. That's going to make your home feel special to you and your family and friends every time they come see you. It's kind of amazing when you think about it, but when you work with the folks at Superior Hardwoods of Montana, you'll be able to create a look for your home that says who you really are to all who stop by. I guess what I'm trying to say is it completes your remodel project to the point that your house just doesn't have a new look or updated look to it. No, it becomes much more than that. Not just a house you live in, but it is now uniquely your home. And it'll feel that way, not just because the project is completed. No, it will feel that way every time you and your family and friends walk through the door. That, my friends, is the difference that Superior Hardwoods of Montana makes. Stop by their showroom in Missoula, Montana today if you can, or give them a call at 406-251-2272, or just visit their website. It's a great way to get to know them at superior-hardwoods.com. That's superior-hardwoods.com, and let them guide you through the woods. Back here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast, talking with Scott Thompson. He is the Wildlife Manager for Region 6. And Scott and I have been covering a great deal of the region and all the different hunting opportunities that are before you here, going on, well, right now for archery folks and some of your upland game bird hunters and that. And it's going to continue on. Lots more seasons opening up as we go along. Back on the hunter access side of things, one, the Hunt Planner, I've always been impressed with it on the FWP website. I think that's something that's a useful tool and one that you hunters should really, really take advantage of, and looking at the different block management opportunities, where they're at, what's going on, and add that into your plan. As far as hunters that say, you know, boy, that just looks like some prime territory. I don't see it on block management, but I really want to go ask the landowner. Talk a bit about what your recommendations are as far as approaching these, because this is super important. I can't stress it enough, because the better you are as a hunting ambassador, and you hunters that are going and talking to these landowners, the better chances we all have of gaining access to that. If we aren't courteous and we leave gates open and do stuff, that's where it really hurts. And Region 6 has done a great job of building that block management up, as he talked about. But talk a bit about what your suggestions are for people that want to talk to landowners about access.
Yeah. No, great question, and we hear a lot from landowners on this as well, and I think it boils down to respect. If I had to think about the central theme around gaining access to private lands, and and that's respecting the land. You mentioned gates and littering, um, going to the bathroom and leaving your toilet paper strung around. I don't know how many landowners just get fed up with it's just those little nuisance things. Not rutting up roads when they're muddy. We can have some tremendous mud in our country, and I know folks show up with souped up pickups and four-wheelers and side-by-sides and everything, and they can get through there, and they got a week to be here, and darn well they're going to go. Well, those are the kind of scenarios that burn bridges and are not respectful of the land. So when in doubt, walk.
Yeah.
If you do get permission, don't rut stuff up, mud stuff up. And then the other part of respect is respecting the landowner, the people, their operation, hours of the day. Don't contact them before 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. Not after. I always say not after about 8 p.m. Maybe even earlier. Some of these folks go to bed early. But ask early, develop relationships. I don't know how many landowners that I visit with that both in block and not in block have met hunters and have just enjoyed their company for the past 20 years, and they built that relationship. That's great. And so that's another part of respect is, just taking the time to visit, to build a relationship. I think you can really benefit your opportunities in the long run, and you just never know, it'll take it. And it tends to snowball.
Sure.
Once you have access and you've made a relationship with neighbor A, the two neighbors that talk at coffee the rest of the year, those folks aren't too bad, Yeah.
Yeah, think about building your reputation. That's a really good point. The other thing is when you're talking to landowners, a really good thing is, instead of just focusing on, I want to get this permission, spend a little time, especially if they say, yeah, you can hunt here, really go over with them, respectively, as far as, are there some areas that you would rather I not be in?
Yep.
Are there some areas you really want me to watch out for? And then lastly, ask them, hey, are there some things you want me to look for in case, you'd like to know about this area or that area? I'm more than happy to check it out for you,
Yeah, you bet. Yeah. You want me to, if I see any cattle back up in this pasture that you want me to let you know, those kind of things, you bet. That goes a long ways. It's kind of, follow up and follow through with your commitments afterwards.
Yeah.
Stop and thank them. Tell them, oh yeah, we saw there was some fence down over here, and whatever it is.
Yeah. Earn your keep. That's the main thing, and it'll go a long way in doing so. And be sure and thank them when you're done. Now, overall, let's talk a little bit about the region as far as what some of the main challenges that you feel are ahead of you for Region 6, if any. Is there any challenges that you guys are really trying to address for Region 6 overall?
On the wildlife management side, I think the CWD is really a challenge, not just for our region or our state, but just wildlife management for deer in general. How do we react to it? How do we manage it? So it's not going to go away. We don't know the long-term effects, but everything points to lower numbers of that species in the presence of CWD. So it's just it's a challenge. It's uncertain. We're probably only 50 years into CWD management. First started in Colorado. We don't know what long-term looks like. So
right.
So that's a big challenge. I think another thing is just kind of adapting to different hunter dynamics, hunter interests and desires. I see a lot more discussion about trophy management, and maybe less about population management, and I don't know what drives that, but certainly I think some of the culture is changing a little bit with hunting, interested in trophy management, and can't help but there's a lot of hunting shows and YouTube that
Sure.
maybe is just not reality.
Yeah.
When we're trying to manage a population and provide the hunting public a population and a place to hunt.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see all my kids and grandkids continue to hunt. That's my number one goal.
Mm-hmm. So
Um,
when you say trophy management, I guess I'm a little confused. How do you even affect that? I mean, you're saying
yeah,
it's trying to manage so the herds have a bigger number of large bulls or large bucks or that or
no, yeah. It's good to clarify that. I think mule deer is a prime example. We manage hunting for mule deer to provide the most opportunity. You and I can go buy a deer license and come to this region and hunt for a buck in every district, but one district. One
Mhm.
district we hold out and we limit the number of buck permits there, and so that is a place where we're managing for older age class bucks.
Mhm.
So that's maybe a good description of
Okay, yeah,
quote
that I see what
trophy
you're saying.
management. But we hear more and more about concerns about mule deer, but what folks are really saying is, I want to see more bucks and bigger bucks.
Yeah.
And that comes at a cost. That
Mhm.
might mean, well, if we do that, it might mean limiting your opportunity through only a certain number of permits are allowed. And you might not mule deer hunt every year. And so those are all just trade-offs. And I think there's an ever-changing hunter dynamic about what they want to see in their wildlife populations.
Mhm.
And
Well,
yeah,
but at least the important thing is that you're recognizing the input of hunters is vital and is something you all at FWP are interested in. And that I harp on this point, and I'm never going to stop. For folks, if you're tired of hearing me say it, yet I'm not going to stop. And that is that when these opportunities for you to give public comment, whether it's going to a meeting, getting on a Zoom call, or going on the website and just giving your comments about different issues that the FWP would like to hear you about, or just overall, that's important. And it's been really tough sometimes for me to get it through people's heads that it does make a difference. One of the things that just really boils me is they say, "Oh, well, that they just say that because they have to, but they're really not interested in hearing what we have to say." That is not true, is it?
no, yeah, you're completely right. We're managing wildlife for the people of Montana, and they need to tell us if we need to be managing things differently. And I think our current mule deer citizens advisory crew is a good example of that. They're informing us, okay, we want to see some changes on the horizon in mule deer management, and we're in the middle of or the beginnings of rewriting our mule deer plan. So that's a really good example.
Yeah.
But that's gonna be determined by people's voices and what they want to see in our management. So, yep.
Okay. Few other quick things. This September is Bear Aware Month. That
Oh.
I wouldn't imagine is much of a concern in your region as it is for others. Any areas we should watch out for or be careful in Region 6 as far as any kind of bear problems, or is that just kind of non-existent in your area?
Uh, we have seen expansion of bears into the western edge of Region 6, and so when I say western, I would say everything west of Malta.
Mm-hmm.
We have certainly the black variety of bears
Sure.
in our island mountain ranges, the Little Rockies and the Bear's Paw. But we've also seen a few grizzly bears, and hunters have encountered a few grizzly bears, both in the upper part of the Missouri Breaks and in the Bears Paw Mountains. So I think it just goes to show, be careful in those areas. You could encounter a grizzly bear, in that further western part of Region 6. But our numbers, we're getting singles here and there.
Mhm.
Nothing what you might expect in some other regions, but it's good to be aware that
Mhm.
they could be some out there. No issues or problems at this point.
Okay, good. Um, one thing I didn't bring this up as far as some of the areas I wanted to cover with you, but is there, and excuse my ignorance here, is there any good lion hunting at all in your area?
Yeah, mountain lions. They occupy again the island mountain ranges, the Bears Paw Mountains, and the Little Rockies, and then throughout the breaks. And we've seen, I would say, a general expansion of their distribution in the region. They seem to be doing pretty well, and we've responded. We and the Fish and Wildlife Commission have increased lion quotas
Mm-hmm.
in most of the regions. So. Um, uh, Maybe similar to elk, our total harvest is a fraction of what other regions see. But, in those areas, again, in the breaks and those little mountain ranges, pretty good lion hunting opportunity. Yep.
What about wolf? Any wolf opportunities in as far as growth and and that has come up in your area?
Yeah, no, there hasn't been. It's interesting. There's plenty to eat on the prairie, but we've yet to see very large expansion of wolves into this area. We've had 2 legal harvested wolves in the past 10 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And interestingly enough, we did some genetic work on those, and it indicates that they were more closely related to wolves in Minnesota. so,
Really? Oh,
so that'll get your mind going.
yeah.
Did they travel from the east actually? But yeah, I would not suggest coming to this region to find a wolf.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so, but you never know. Well, that's a good thing, though, I think.
Yeah.
As far as those of you coming from the Minnesota area, do not pick up any wolf hitchhikers then.
Yeah,
Sounds like
there you
maybe
go.
a few caught a ride, but uh,
Yeah.
what would you say in Region 6 is the thing you're most proud of that you guys have been involved in, you and your staff?
Oh, I have the privilege to work with just such a talented and just driven uh, group of folks. And we've always worked as a team. Block management is such a success here
Yeah,
is because everybody works on it. It's not just a wildlife or a parks or everybody. The wardens are out there talking to landowners, and so that boils down to working together. And we have I would say, a great relationship with private landowners. We spend a lot of time all year long drinking coffee, sitting
yeah,
down, seeing what's eating their lunch, uh, working on habitat work with them if they would like, resolving enforcement issues, whatever it might be. So, I think that landowner relations and everybody works on it is something I'm most proud of here that the department has done, and it and it also goes to the people that live in this region, the landowners and the communities. It's
mhm.
just great place, great place. Glasgow's the middle of nowhere, they tell us. So I think that's not a bad thing.
No, it's a wonderful place too. Wonderful place. Uh, Lastly, and here's another tough question for you. Obviously, you're a hunter too. What is your favorite thing to go out and hunt for in Region 6?
Yeah, you gave me a heads up on this one. I've been racking my brain all morning about it. I as a younger hunter, I would say elk drove my desires immensely.
Yeah.
But as I grow older and I have 4 boys of my own, and it's so much more about seeing everyone's success and together, and we do we hunt everything, I think.
Sure.
But more recently, turkey hunting has this. I think all of my boys have successfully harvested a bird now, and seeing them all really enjoy that. That's probably my current most favorite one is turkey hunting, but it's a long ways from chasing elk. So.
Yeah, it is a whole different thing, but it is fun. Turkey hunting is fun. If those of you out there have not done it, that's a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah, it kind of breaks the winter monotony, and as long as you don't mind ticks, it can be a real enjoyable sport.
Watch out for that stuff. All right. Anything else that we haven't covered that you wanted to get in here before we go at all, Scott?
A couple things. Our region, I think, has seen probably an increase in hunters, just like everyone has seen, but it seems to be increasing at a steeper rate. We've seen more non-residents that get a Montana license, they land here. Our state is growing, and we've seen more participation in the hunting out here. So we've seen a pretty steep increase. And I only bring it up as a reality. It's not necessarily a problem or a challenge that we can't overcome, but it's affecting a lot of things, including access and how local hunters perceive our management of animals. And so when hunters are shopping around, it's not necessarily a sleeper spot anymore. Nobody knows about Region 6. Yeah, it's been discovered long ago. And the other thing I think is just, check your expectations wherever you want to hunt Montana. But whether that's the critter you're after, the size of its antlers or horns, how many, but just remember, we're out here to hunt, enjoy it, spend time outdoors, hopefully bring home some game, build some relationships. I think just remember what the sport is really about. So.
Yeah, that's true. Get out there and enjoy it and have fun. And that has there been any talk about? And I think, if I remember right, there might have been some talk for your area with birds and that, as far as maybe starting out-of-state hunters a little later, giving residents a little more. Has that come up? Is there any talk about maybe doing that?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the kind of the symptoms of what I mentioned about we're seeing more folks that show up here, and the residents are the residents of this area are seeing that, and should we react to that somehow? And so the commission did entertain some later start dates for non-resident, and did not pass any of those things. I think it's just risen the profile of that, and bird dog training was a kind of a component of that. So in Montana, there's been some changes with bird dog owners that want to train their bird dogs. And historically, folks from anywhere could just show up with however many dogs and train at will. Well, now there's season dates on public lands. And so for non-residents, they can't start training until after September 1st on public lands. But all bird dog trainers need to buy a license and then let us know how many dogs they're going to train. And we're just trying to get a sense of how big a problem is this? Is it a problem? We don't know, but we're hearing a fair bit about it from both landowners and communities. And so, it's something to be aware of for bird dog trainers and bird hunters.
But along that lines, I think a good thing to remember for us residents, and I get it. Sometimes you go, hey, this is our land, and these guys are coming in from outside, but you got to remember the big picture here, gang. Is one, you got way more advantage than any out-of-stater because you live here, you know the area, you know what's going on. You have some of those relationships built up that they may not have, and those kind of things. The other thing is, remember the benefit that they bring in think about your local sporting goods store owner, your local restaurant, your local hotel owner, and all that. That's an important part of the economy. And the way I always kind of look at out-of-staters is, welcome them in, because the more that they spend and pay, the less we have to. I mean, they kind of help share in that, and they pay a premium to be here. So it's I think, fair in the way that it's done. So, try to get along with them and welcome them to our state, because overall it helps a lot of your neighbors and everybody when they show up.
Yeah.
So
now that's a good point. Yeah, I've heard many of these communities, such as Plentywood and Malta, talk about that's their tourism is when the hunting public or and in some cases like Fort Peck, when the fishing public show up. That's tourism that's stimulating that economy. You bet.
Yeah, helps your neighbors a lot. So just, I won't preach too much on that. But anyway, Scott, thank you so much for spending time with me and going over all these great opportunities that Region 6 has to offer. And there are a lot of them. So we really appreciate you spending time here, and best of luck to you and your staff. And thanks for all the service you do for our state and our wildlife in this area. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet, Dale, and good luck to all the hunters this fall. It's going to be a good one.
All right. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Scott Thompson giving us a great overview of the great Region 6. So check it out. As we always say, be sure and check out all your regulations. Look at all that stuff. Get your plan set to go. Any questions that you have, I'm going to put Scott's email down there. You can be sure and let him know if you've got questions, comments, or things like that. And he can, get the right person back to you. And of course, Manny will be giving my email address here in a sec. And you can always email me too, and I'll chase down and get answers for you too. So until then, folks, have a great time. Be safe out there. Be good to each other. And we'll see you next time here on the Montana Outdoor Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Montana Outdoor Podcast. It has been brought to you in part by Superior Hardwoods of Montana, home of the largest selection of in-stock high-end wood products and flooring in the western United States. Let them guide you through the woods at superior-hardwoods.com. And by Rocky Mountain Truck and Trailer in Missoula, home of Boss Snowplows, CM Truck Beds, and Diamond Sea Trailers. Just go to rmtte.com for more information. So what did you think of today's podcast? Send your questions and comments to Downrigger at montanaaoutdoor.com. We should be dropping a new podcast this next Saturday. Until then, we'll see you soon out in Montana's great outdoors.